It's Misha. We're going to talk about your heart and hypertension this morning. It's something that I suffered with that I thought I was going to die from. And I had been cycled through so many medications and they weren't able to get it under control. And every doctor, and I saw multiple doctors trying to get it under control, was frustrated, not knowing what medications to put me on to fix my blood pressure. So if that sounds like you guys, if you know someone or if you're that someone who has a blood pressure that's 130 over 80 or higher and it's climbing and you just can't seem to get answers, let's stop for a second and understand. Do most of you, let me do it this way. Do any of you, does anyone understand what the root cause of 95% of hypertension is? If you know what it is, put a 1 in the chat and then let me know what you think it is, because there really is one thing that's found to be at the root of 95% of hypertension. And while you guys are deciding if you think you know what it is, I want you to understand that cardiovascular diseases are the leading killer in the world today. And the last numbers I knew, and they were a few years ago, so the number's probably higher now, but 50,000 people a day are dying from heart disease. And why is that important? Well, if we take a step back and understand that 80% of those cardiovascular deaths were linked to hypertension, long-term hypertension. So if 95% of hypertension is linked to this one thing, and 80% of those cardiovascular deaths are linked to hypertension, then maybe we should start to understand what's really going on with our hearts. And so I know that doctors give you all kinds of answers for what they think they're trying to do with you, right? But how many of you ever have been told that your heart disease, your blood pressure that's been high for years is linked to lifestyle? And no, it's not smoking. And no, it's not necessarily alcohol. So all of those things they used to say about your high blood pressure, they were kind of throwing darts at the wall. So what they did was they had some correlational studies being like, oh, hey, a lot of people with hypertension seem to smoke. We're going to blame it on smoking. And obesity, that, hypertension is an obesity problem. But what causes the obesity? And is it just that people are eating too much? Well, there's that. But what about the food that we're getting? I felt that coming. There was a bit of tea left on the top of the water and it hit my throat wrong. All right. That was interesting. So that one thing happens to be insulin resistance. You guys, that insulin resistance is lifestyle related and definitely caused by our modern food environment. It's insane. Now, we're going to go over what insulin resistance is and what it links to and all of the stuff. And yes, I'm going to give you the solution that I found that completely reversed my hypertension. It now is 110 over 70 every single day, no longer 150 over 110. And no, I'm not on any medications now. I don't take any medications. I do a couple of supplements, this protocol that helped with my hyperinsulinemia, and that's it. So after years and years of my heart continuing to damage itself, of doctors poking, prodding, taking scans, doing all kinds of tests, and not being able to figure out how to get my blood pressure under control, it's under control with no medications. So insulin resistance. Just making sure you guys, if I miss a question, if you put a question in and I miss it, just re-ask it or say, hey, I had a question, and then I will stop and let you know. But I do love questions and interaction. So let's dive into it. So what's really happening, I'm going to give you 5 ways today that hyperinsulinemia or insulin resistance affects your body in a way that affects your blood pressure. And if you start to see this, you'll understand that getting insulin resistance under control is going to relieve these five things that are causing high blood pressure so that your blood pressure can come down and be normal. So when we look at insulin resistance, there's a lot of people who don't understand what it is. And I didn't understand what it was until I went down this rabbit hole either. Okay. So no shame. We know what we know until we know what we don't know. So here we are. Insulin resistance happens when your blood glucose goes up to a point that it needs distributed to the body. So our bloodstream only should have about 1 teaspoon of glucose in it, sugar, energy. We're going to call it energy before it cues the pancreas, an organ, to put out a hormone. Now, the pancreas does way more than just insulin, but insulin is one of the hormones the pancreas puts out. Why insulin? Insulin takes the energy that's in the bloodstream and delivers it to every single cell of the body. Think of it like a transport system. It's not its only job, but it's the job we're going to talk about. So now you have these packages of energy running throughout your bloodstream. Now the body goes, hey, insulin, we need you to transport this. So your insulin levels go up. Every cell has insulin receptors. So think of it like this is the cell body, right? And there's these little receptors for all these hormones, not just insulin, that poke out. Now the insulin carries that package of energy to one of those receptors, kind of like unlocks it, and the receptor opens and lets the energy in the cell. That's in a perfectly working body. But when we inundate our bodies with so much insulin because we've put in so much energy, our body starts to kind of go crazy, right? So some cells don't want to take up any more insulin. Some cells take up too much insulin. Some cells can continue functioning the way they are. But the term insulin resistance comes basically from the cells that are starting to shut down. But the whole syndrome is insulin resistance, better be termed hyperinsulinemia. Now, insulin resistance can happen for 10, 20 years before you ever get a diagnosis of diabetic or are ever told that there's something wrong with your blood sugars, and here's why. So insulin is carrying all of this sugar around or energy around to your cells. Some cells are taking up the amount they need, and that's fine. That's how we're surviving, right? Some cells are like, I'm tired of you. I'm tired of you, insulin. I don't want to hear from you anymore. And those little receptors start to shut down. Now, inflammation causes this too. So as your cells get inflamed, it starts to puff up, and those receptors for all the hormones start to be less active. Okay, so insulin is delivering those to some cells that don't want them, some cells that take it up, and then there's the cells, and we're going to get into some of these this morning, that are like, woo, free for all, I'll take everything you got. But at the end of the day, even with all of this going on, there's a lot of energy left in our system that insulin just can't deliver to the cells. So when we have that excess energy for the excess insulin, it goes to our storage cells called our fat cells. Now we start to put on weight, especially in the abdominal area, because there's a center in the brain that cues the brain to produce more of this brown fat that's underneath the muscle wall of the tummy. And that's what we're all told, but people forget to talk about that visceral fat being in the back of your throat and your tongue, and that leads to sleep apnea issues. And I'll go over that later if we want. So now you have this problem where not all the cells are taking up enough insulin. Some cells are taking up too much insulin, and you're putting on fat. So now, yes, obesity does increase the risk of heart rate, but it was the insulin resistance that increased the obesity, and we need to understand that. So when you go into a doctor and they say, just lose some weight and everything will get better. I'm tired of seeing you. I can't figure you out. If you would just lose some weight and if you just cared about yourself, you would feel better. Well, how about we understand why we're gaining weight so rapidly, what's happening, and it's not just the hand to mouth problem, right? So let's understand that. So all of those things combined. Now, when you have fat cells that are growing, they eventually can become insulin resistant as well, because all of our cells have a self-preservation mode. And it gets pretty complicated why the cells that aren't taking up insulin are doing that, but they're in self-preservation mode. The fat cells, when they are so full that they feel like, okay, I'm going to expand too much and I might be in danger of exploding and then I'm no longer going to exist. When it gets like that, those fat cells are now insulin resistant as well. They're like, hey, I don't want any more energy from you, insulin. I'm not taking it anymore. Or they start to spill that sugar back out into your bloodstream. Either way, the sugar's not getting delivered or it's spilling back out into your bloodstream. Now your blood sugars are going up. Now your A1C is going up. Now your lipid profile is going up and you don't know what just happened. Now all of a sudden you're not pre-diabetic, you're not diabetic at all, and it seems like within months you're pre-diabetic and then you're diabetic and then you're getting sicker and it's getting worse and worse and worse. So that was me. I had years and years where I was sick and everybody said, you need to get your blood work done. And I'd get my blood work done and it would come back perfect. And I'm like, hey, I'm a picture of health. My blood sugars are great. My A1C is great. My lipid panel is great. I don't know what's going on. What was going on was insulin resistance the whole time. So what's causing the insulin resistance is too much food, too much of the wrong kind of food, too often. It really is two things. The wrong food too often is really what it is. Okay. So when you hear these people talk about eat every 2 hours, how many of you guys put a 2 in the chat? If you hear all these people yapping, I'm going to say yapping, yapping, yapping about you need to eat every 2 hours. You need to eat before your body gets hungry. You need to eat before blah, blah, blah. And they tell you to eat small meals every 2 hours because that's going to fix your metabolism. That's going to cause you to lose weight. Well, no, what causes the weight loss? Oof, how many of you guys have been told that? Yeah. Okay. So let's look at it. What's really happening when you're eating every 2 hours is you're being overfed, even though you think you're eating smaller meals. So it's a great idea or premise, right? But there's not any science behind it. So when you're eating every 2 hours, what science has found is that instead of, and this might shock you, instead of eating 6 times a day, people are eating up to 16 times a day because now you're having smaller meals, but you're having a snack in between. So instead of eating 6 times a day, you're eating 12 to 16 times a day because every time you put something in your face, you're eating, right? So that's one problem with it. The second problem is that it's really meant to be like caloric restriction and just give you just enough energy to get you to the next 2 hour meal. And hopefully you'll be eating enough to not feel over hungry and overeat. But I don't think that's the problem. I think that there's a lot of people, like I have ADD. I know a few other people who have similar cognitive or neurospatial problems. And there's impulse control problems with that. So maybe it's not just the amount you're eating, it's that, and for me as an ADD person, if you tell me to eat every 2 hours, it does become 16 hours because it just seems like this free for all day long. But here's what's happening. When your insulin levels go up, remember it's because your sugar levels in your bloodstream went up. Every time you eat, and a lot of these guys are saying, oh, eat white bread or eat whatever, but you want to cut out the fat. We want to talk about that for a second. But what's happening is it's spiking your glucose or your energy every couple of hours. So remember, every time you spike your glucose, your energy level, your energy transport, the insulin is going to come out to deliver that energy. So even if you're eating smaller meals, but you're eating every 2 hours, you have this cycle of your blood sugars going up. By the time they drop down, because your blood sugars don't normalize for about 4 hours after you eat, 4 hours, but you're eating at 2 hours. Now you're keeping your blood sugar level high, so your insulin level has to stay high. At first, people will seem to see some weight loss, but over time, they start to pack on the weight. What you're doing is you're training your body by eating every 2 hours. You're training your body that it will always be fed externally and that's the energy that it's going to use. And you actually have two energy sources. One is fat and the other is sugar. So when you're eating constantly, you're telling your body, I need sugar all the time. And so it starts to train you to keep a certain level of insulin out. Now that level of insulin is when it's higher, takes longer to come down. So you eat at 2 hours, your blood sugars come up, they start to level out at about hour two, and are just starting to drop at hour four. Insulin is here doing its job, and you eat again. So insulin goes, oh, I'm still on duty. I got to do this job. So we do that all day long, and we continually spike our insulin and continually keeping it higher than it needs to be. And now we have this array of cell dysfunction going on in our body. The better model is actually intermittent fasting. I know, oh my God, she's an intermittent freak, and she's going to tell me I got to not eat so much. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. So when you intermittent fast, and I'm not talking about you got to go days and days. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about put the spoon, fork, and knife down for a minute. Okay. So when you do that, and you guys, when I'm talking to you, I'm reminding myself all the time too, because I'm not perfect in any way, shape, or form. But so dinner last night, I had leftover Indian food. It ended up being about 5 p.m. for me to have dinner. So that means this morning I'm already 12 hours, right? It's now 9 a.m. I'm actually now at 16 hours of fasting. So yeah. So TM Kirk says, ooh, there's a lot of comments. Let's catch up. I want to go and why it's working. So 18.6 does great for you. Laura, I want to talk about, like, it can be 18.6, and 18.6 is actually really great because you're only eating 2 meals during that time. And at the 18-hour period, you're getting more of the fat burning going. Those hormones of HGH and ketones are actually really going up. So your body's doing a lot of clean hours, but it really maximizes at about hour 24 to 36. So you get to 16 to 18 hours, you're getting some really good fat burning in there. And that's amazing. So why do people lose weight? People lose weight when, there is some truth to calories in, calories out, but it's not an science. So obviously, if you're eating 5,000 calories in a day and you're fairly sedentary and you're like a normal human, you only need about 1,800 to 2,000 calories a day. Now, you're eating 5,000, so that's going to cause some fat storage, right? And that's partly what does happen when we're eating every 2 hours. So with intermittent fasting, we'll go over a time really quick. And I'm going to just use myself because this is last night. Ate dinner at 5 p.m. That means my blood sugar starts to normalize around 7 or start to peak around 7 p.m. 2 hours later. They drop and normalize about 4 hours later. In a normal person, it takes about 8 hours for the insulin to go, oh, hey, they're not going to feed me anymore. I need to come down. Now, the more metabolically flexible you get, the quicker that insulin is going to understand that it needs to come down. But in most of us that are insulin resistant, it takes a while because remember, we've trained insulin to be high. It takes a come down. 8 hours. 8 hours after my last bite of food before my insulin levels start to come down. But you're eating every 2 hours all day and you wake up and start eating again. And so you never get into this state where you can, when insulin is out, you're always burning sugar, utilizing sugar for energy. Now, when insulin comes down, it's component hormone that is, we're going to look at it this way. Insulin is a spender. Insulin is a saver. Glucagon is a spender. Insulin is anabolic. It wants things to grow. Glucagon is catabolic. It wants to eat things up. So there are two sides, right? Everything has a yin yang, a light, a dark, a whatever. There's two sides to everything in life. Nothing that's one-sided. So with insulin, the other side of it would be glucagon. So now when glucagon is out, which is about 2 hours after insulin goes down, so we're at 10 hours, now glucagon starts to flood the system, and the system is during this time saying, oh, hey, there's no more sugar coming in. We're going to switch modes now and we're going to burn a different kind of fuel, like a hybrid car, right? So you're running along and you're spending all this energy and you're cruising down the highway, you're on gas, right? When you're in town and you're not going as much, you're on electric part of the car, right? So your body's similar. So bed during the daytime, most of us, we go to bed, and I love the don't eat past 6, because when you go to bed and your stomach is full, and this happened to me last night, I overate a little bit, and so my stomach was too full, no gallbladder. So I had unrest last night because my body was digesting. So if you can stop eating at 6, not only are you going to have this insulin thing happening when you're asleep, but your body's not going to be working hard to digest. You'll sleep better. Okay, so hour 10, glucagon comes out. At hour 12, now that glucagon is out and the body's going, oh, hey, glucagon's out, it's going to stay, then HGH starts to be human hormone, which your cells need. Not just your muscles, but your cells need. Every cell, and muscle is a cell, and your HGH comes out, and your ketones, the little messengers that start telling you to burn fat for fuel. Now, in those fat cells, inflammation, there's sugar, there's other things that are just stored in your fat cells. They start to get released. You start to use that for energy. Your cells actually have a back door to energy in without insulin there. And that's how it works when you're in what some people would call ketosis, because your ketones are going up. And that is an indication that your insulin level is down. So it takes 12 hours for those hormones to start coming out, right? Now, or for those other pieces to come out. Now, at hour 12, they're out, but it takes another couple hours for the body to start to adjust to those. So at hour 14, you're getting some really good fat burn. So hours 14 to 16, you're burning fat, and that's where we want to be, okay? So that's why a 16-hour fast, keeping the insulin level down. Now, when we are in an eating window, what we'll do is prioritize protein, fill up with fats, and start with fiber first every time you eat. We've got to rebuild gut health, and I'll go over a lot of that. So protein and fats are what you want to focus on. Do eat. You want to limit your carbs, especially the packaged box processed carbs, and stick with the fruits and vegetables for your carbohydrates. So then you want to do this intermittent fasting, and then you got to move your body. There are so many, you guys, I have a lot of questions, and I'm not the exercise person, right? But if you just Google it, there are so many exercises, no matter what your exercise level is, no matter what your fitness level is, no matter what your health level is, there's something out there for you so that you can move your body 30 minutes a day. And I'm not like we're sitting, we don't do meal plan guidelines, Gail. So what I'll tell you is some simple steps. Now, I have an ebook called 6 Simple Steps, and that gives you all of these guidelines. It's, I don't know, about a dozen pages or so, but it's free to you guys. So I do meal guidelines, and there's a number of reasons I don't. Like, I have pretty much a standard diet, but I love Mexican food. Not as big a fan of Italian food. I eat it from time to time. So if I had a meal plan, then it requires everybody to change what they're doing. And so many brilliant doctors, I'm going to say brilliant doctors because they happen to agree with my train of thought, or I agree with their train of thought, or whatever. What the thing is, we need to eat right. So this is an old term, right? Eat right for your body type. So most diets don't allow that for you, right? If I were to give you a meal plan, doesn't allow that for most people. So there's some basic rules, and that is fiber first. You need to get in about 30 to 40 grams of fiber a day, but fiber first. I'll talk about why. Prioritize protein. You need about a gram of protein, a pound of ideal body weight. So I'm not at my ideal body weight. My ideal body would be about 170 pounds. So I aim to get in 150 to 170 pounds or 70 grams of protein during my fed windows. Women We are not getting in enough protein. Most of us women are horrible at getting protein because if we eat salads and stuff, we're doing something amazing. And I know because I was brought up that way too, but we need protein. You cannot lose weight, or it's much more difficult to lose weight or lose fat, I should, if you're not getting protein in. So, um, when whatever your meals look like within those guidelines, that's what they look like. So if you love Mediterranean food, stick with your Mediterranean food. I happen to be Native American, O positive blood type, means I've had a carnivorous genetic line. I do best when I'm eating animal meats. And that's where I stick. So I just still follow the same guidelines. Fiber first. I'm going to show you. I'll just talk about it right now. Fiber first, and then I prioritize protein. And I honestly try to get in 40 to 50 grams of protein per meal. That's tough to do sometimes, right? So I do have some protein shakes that I created that are high fat. JJ Virgin talks about it a lot. Mindy Pels, Dr. Bickman, all talk about this need of healthy fat. So the people who order the system from me that I'm going to talk about on subscription get a link to the cookbook with those uh, recipes for shakes and morning drinks and some meals and stuff. It's not a big cookbook. It's only about 90, 100 pages, but it gives you an idea of how I eat so you can figure out what you want to do for you. There's a ton of recipes out there you guys can find. So all I do is I have my tea. The tea I drink every single morning is this. It's just packaged like this. It's a highly concentrated, very highly concentrated and extracted form of yerba mate tea. And it goes through the 5-step process, but the 5th step is one of the, it's not the most important, but it's kind of unique. We send it where they put it through a process called hyperpure, and that purifies the toxins, the PAHs, the pesticides and stuff out of the tea. So now I have a tea that's 375 times more potent in some components than regular standard yerba mate tea, and it's highly pure. What this tea does, by the way, those semaglutide, Ozempic, Mounjaro, tirzepatide, Trulicity, they're all GLP-1 agonists, glucagon-like peptide 1 pathway agonists. What that pathway does is it allows you to feel full. So those drugs are trying to do that. They're trying to help you feel full. So there's a pathway in your brain. There's a video in the T tab on TikTok when the glucagon-like tide is out. You start to get some satiety in your gut, the gut-brain axis, right? So now this tea increases your glucagon-like peptide action by 70%. That's on science-based, by 70% naturally. Not some chemical that's saying, hey, yo, cell over there, I want you to change what you're doing, so you're going to do that, right? I got a stranglehold on you, you're going to do that. That's kind of what medications do. This is supporting your body to say, hey, yo, cell, I got something for you. You can function better. You can do better if you just have this gift. And so the system is really just plugging gaps and giving our body the gift of the nutrition that it's missing. The tea has antioxidant, anti-cancer properties. Now, I had a conversation with a person yesterday, lovely woman, just asking questions that I'm good with questions being asked, because if you don't ask, you won't know. You might get misinformation. So she said, well, there was a study out there that I read that said yerba mate causes cancer, and oh my gosh, what am I going to do? If you guys start to take a look at some of the studies and really read through them, it wasn't the plant yerba mate causing the cancer. It was the fact that, like, my tea is kind of warm, kind of hot, but it's not scalding hot. So what I explained to her was, remember the McDonald's drama where the lady spilt the coffee on her lap and got like 3rd-degree burns, and they got sued, and the coffee was just too hot? Well, drinking hot liquids like that multiple times a day over years and years of time cause damage to cells in the back of the throat. It was the heat. It could have been hot water they drank every day, and it would have caused at the temperatures they were drinking it. It wasn't the components of the tea. They actually have antioxidant and anti-cancer components in them. It's the tea is called Unamate. You'll find it in my profile link. So you guys, if you just tap on my profile, in there, there's some red light symbols under my picture. The link is right below that, and I'll show you how to get there in just a second. But that's just the first part of the system. So the second part is this fiber that I drink 10 minutes before I eat, every time I eat. I have a bottle like this. I put it about this full of water. I dump this in, shake it up, drink it down, wait 10 minutes, and then I eat. Why? 7 different soluble and insoluble fibers in here: vitamins, minerals, and phytosterols. Now, what this one does, this one gives you energy. It shuts down your hunger. It helps with ketone production by keeping you in that fasted state. It has so many properties to it. But this is the one that's been showing to reduce the A1C levels, the blood glucose levels, and the triglyceride levels, excuse me, because this is what it's doing. So when you drink this, it thickens up in your stomach because the enzymes in your stomach are mixing with it, right? And it becomes this thick gel in your stomach. Now you feel full before you even eat. And that's a good thing. I have people say, I don't want to drink the fiber because I just feel too full before I eat. Well, that's a good thing. It's a good thing. Okay. So it makes you feel full before you eat, but when you do eat, that thick gelatin mass now starts to encapsulate the food, slows it down. I call it time release delivery. So it's slowing down the delivery of the food into your stomach. Exactly the same type of thing that the glucagon-like peptides are trying to do. They slow down the emptying of your stomach so you'll stay feeling full longer. However, different actions, right? The GLP-1 medications are freezing up your stomach so it doesn't contract as much. And that's where the slowdown of the delivery is. And I hope you can understand that if your stomach and your intestines aren't contracting, they're weakening, they're starting to get what we would call frozen up. And now you're at risk for having a bolus or this impact of food in your gut that just can't pass, and you may end up in the hospital. With the balance, what it's doing is supporting your healthy gut microbiome. It's slowing down the food delivery while allowing your gut and your intestines to contract like they're supposed to. But instead of it going in a form that's just highly easily shot through your system, it's giving your body a chance to adjust to it all at once. That's a long, long description, but balance helps you feel full before you eat, keeps you feeling full long after you eat, so you're not having that breakthrough hunger, and slows down the delivery of that glucose so your insulin spikes never go as high. This has been proven to reduce an insulin blood sugar spike by 20% with white bread, one of the highest glycemic carbohydrates out there, and an insulin spike by 13%. So it actually works. There's been science behind it. That's the system. A tea in the morning, a pre-meal drink before I eat, and that's what happened to work for me and get me off of all medications. So now we understand all of that, and I really went a long way around from what I like to do. But just understand there is a protocol out there that's natural food. It's been around for more than 20 years. The company itself has been around for more than 100 years, and it's solid. We just, you know what? Why hasn't it been heard about? Well, the system being put together of the Unimate and the balance together only happened in 2021. And so the balance has been out for a while, right? And we tried it in Walgreens, Walmart, whatever. But what we found is that because there's not someone to explain it, it just didn't go well for people, and they didn't understand it, and they didn't stay consistent. When you order through my link, you actually get to have conversations with me. I do pick up the phone, and you get to talk to me and say, hey, this is what's going on. That's what's going on. These are my concerns. I'm not a doctor. I can't diagnose you, but I can certainly help coach you through this and help keep you consistent till you get the results that you are looking for. And then hopefully you're as big of a fan as I am of the system. So You get that when you purchase. You get a 90-day money back guarantee, you get a low price guarantee, you get a quality guarantee. You don't get those when you buy. By the way, if you're thinking I'm going to run to Amazon and order it, you don't get any of those guarantees. You don't get someone like me to coach you. No one on Amazon, eBay, or Walmart is authorized to sell the products. The company has spent so much time and money trying to get them off of there because we found pirated products, we found expired products, whatever. Just order from a link that is authorized. Okay, the tea, the pre-meal drink. That's all I did to lose that first 50 pounds, to reverse my diabetes. If I was to go into a doctor's office today, there's not a clue in my blood work that says that I'm diabetic. They would say you're not diabetic. If they don't know my history, there would be no clue of that. Not even my blood pressure. Like I said, it runs about 110 over 70, 112 over 74, somewhere in there. For a 60-year-old woman, that's a pretty damn good blood pressure. All right. So now, how does your blood pressure get high in the first place? Let's dive into what we really are supposed to be here to talk about. Those 5 ways. You guys have been keeping me talking. The 5 ways that insulin resistance, this whole thing we talked about, increases your blood pressure are like this. When we look at the blood vessels, there's multiple layers of cells in there. The innermost layer of cells in your blood vessels is called the endothelium. So that endothelium depending on the thickness of it, determines the space inside, right? So in a normal body, we have these blood vessels, and the endothelium is a normal level. And we have this big space where fluid can pass through. With insulin resistance, remember, some cells will take up too much of that energy and grow too rapidly. So those endothelium are some of the ones that are going to take up too much. So the inner wall goes from being fairly thin to thickening. And as that inner wall inside the vessel thickens, it narrows down the space for fluid to flow through. So now, instead of having the space of a fire hose for your blood to pass through, you have the space of a garden hose. So, Adrian, the tea helps elicit your own GLP-1 action in your body by supporting what your body's supposed to do, but it has been shown to increase the natural GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide actions in your body by 70%. So it's not an artificial making your body overwork. It's supporting your body to do good work. Fit, fit chick. You don't have heart issues, and your kids will not be dying in their sleep. Wonder why? That's an odd question. I don't know where that came from. But if you want to expand, I'm more than happy to talk about that. More heart diseases to issues than ever. Blood clots. Wonder why? Yeah. So now we're going to talk about some of that, right? So now the number one way, the endothelium thickens. So now your blood vessel size is smaller interior, same amount of volume trying to push through that narrowed down space, pressure goes up. Now the endothelium also do a number of other things. It's actually the blood-brain barrier. It decides what gets through to the blood-brain, through into the brain. Now, when it starts to dysfunction, it's not allowing the right things through, or not allowing enough of the right things through, and we start to have brain function problems too. But the other thing that endothelium produces is nitric oxide. Nitric oxide allows the blood vessels to relax and open up. In an insulin resistant body with these endothelium that are way out of control, the endothelium can't produce nitric oxide like it's supposed to. So now the vessels are smaller and they can't open up. They're stiffer. So now the blood pressure stays up even when when the body should be cueing you to open up the blood vessels to have more blood flow, because of exercise, because of emergency, whatever. Is it reversible? Most of it is if you just take care of the root cause of insulin resistance. So now that's two ways. We're going to get five ways. Then the third way is that it affects your kidneys in a way that there's another hormone called aldosterone that regulates how much salt is held in our body. And remember, where salt goes, water goes. So if you have a salt retention problem, you have a water retention problem. Now, in a normal body, the kidneys filter and they pass some of the salt out, and so fluid is going out. Um, in a body that's insulin resistant, that whole thing happens wrong. Now the kidneys are cueing the body to hold on to too much salt. You're peeing a lot because you're retaining a lot of, not because, but you're peeing a lot, but you're retaining a lot of water. So um, that water retention now is giving more volume to that already narrowed down space that's too tight and can't open up. So now the blood pressure is going up even more because the kidneys can't offload salt like they should. Now, not the last one, the fourth one is going to be your fight or flight. Insulin and cortisol are agonists to each other in a lot of ways. If you get your cortisol raised too high by going out partying all the time, by working all night long, by only getting 4 hours of sleep a night, by never resting, by putting yourself in anxious situations all the time, you get that cortisol level up chronically, you're going to start to have an insulin resistance problem. But if you get your insulin up constantly, you start to have a cortisol regulation problem. And now you're feeling fatigued and you're having all of those problems. Well, this cortisol being constantly elevated when you have insulin resistance, insulin is going to increase cortisol. Too much cortisol is going to increase insulin, and you just stair step your way into disease and unhealth, and dishealth, whatever. So now your insulin level's up. So that's cueing your cortisol level go up. Cortisol puts you into this fight or flight mode where your body's like your heart starts pumping a little. It's trying to get more blood through the system. But remember, your blood vessels are tighter, they can't open up, and there's way too much fluid anyway. Now you've increased your heart rate, and so now it's trying to pump more fluid through these tight, restricted little veins that just can't do it. And your blood pressure is going up and up and up. But there's still one more way that all of this happens, and that is it starts to mess your lipid levels. Insulin resistance messes the the low density lipoprotein. That's the one we're going to talk about, right? So everybody knows that LDL is the bad cholesterol and HDL is good cholesterol. And I'm going to give you a calculation here in a second. But what happens is there's actually two types of LDL. Type A, which is large and buoyant, and type B, which is small and dense. So we normally produce both types, right? And they each have their own jobs. The small dense ones are really great because when we get these little damages and these little holes in our blood vessels, the type B lipoprotein, the type B LDL, goes in and kind of plugs those little holes. All right. Good job, right? Great job, body. But now when we have insulin resistance, we're producing more of these little tiny ones that are sticky and clog and block off some of these holes in the blood vessels. But now we're getting a buildup of them because we're producing too much of them. So they're sinking to the bottom and they're causing arterial plaque because it's building up these fat inside of your blood vessels. All of that happened because of insulin resistance. Now, if you get the insulin, and so here's the thing, you guys, please understand, I'm giving you something that can help you, or I'm talking about something that helped me with my blood pressures, thousands of other people with theirs, but it's doing it in a natural. All of those things, the blood vessels getting way too thick and tightening up, and the cortisol being elevated all the time, and the aldosterone being off, and the fats being off, all of that didn't happen overnight. Okay. So if you get that under control, it's going to take some time for that to clear out and reverse. for those endothelium to regenerate and start to thin back out, to be able to do their job naturally, to start getting the messages through to the brain, to stop being so tight and restricted, and to get some of that LDL that's clogged up in your veins moving on out. And that's another part of intermittent fasting. We're moving some of that stuff out. Intermittent fasting, you guys, is good for your brain, it's good for your gut, it's good for your heart. So it's exact, and it's good for your thyroid. It's exactly the opposite of what many people have thought. But there's so many scientific studies out now that can show that. I've had this AFib question before, and you know what? I feel bad because I don't have a very clear answer, but I can tell you this. What I remember from reading is that because AFib is tightly linked to some of the stuff I just talked about, that if you start to fix those things, the AFib can start to normalize as well. Now, am I going to tell you that's going to happen for you? I can't do that. Am I going to tell you that it's probably worth 90 days to do the system, do it consistently, and see if your AFib starts to get better? And if it does, woohoo, stick with the program. And if it doesn't, and you don't have more mental clarity and you don't have better energy and you don't see your blood pressure going down and all of that, then you get your money back anyway. So it's your health. What do you want to do? Do you want to try it? We have a cardiologist Dr. Ahmed, who is prescribing this for every single patient who comes through his clinic. We have naturopathic physicians who are starting to recommend this in their clinic. We have endocrinologists who are recommending it. We have neurologists who are recommending it. We have pharmacologists who are like, this is the best thing they've seen in years of pharmacology. So would it be worth you supporting? And what I want to shift everyone into understanding is, if you want to do the drug route, if you want to go do that and you want to take an injection and you want to do whatever, and I don't like them, so I'm sorry that's going to come out right now, but I don't like those medications because I've seen the damage that it causes to people's bodies. Don't like them, 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 don't like them. But if that's what you choose, that's great. Go there and choose that. But what I'm here to talk about is people who don't want to do all that damage to their pancreas, to their gallbladder, to their thyroid, to their intestinal tract, to their stomach tract, that want to figure out how we got here in the first place and start to fix that at the root cause. Because nobody is deficient in medications. That's not why you got fat, because of medications. That's not why your heart rate went up because of a lack of medications. It's a lack of proper nutrition. And our food environment today just doesn't give us the proper nutrition. So I supplement to fill in the gaps. And your cardio doctor said, do it, Rhonda? So any doctor who's actually studied it, read the papers, understands it, is actually pretty happy about it. I know there are some doctors out there who are like, oh, it's hooey, but I worked in so many doctors' offices, and I know there was, like, in Portland, there was a group of clinics that had a group of doctors that ran the clinic. It was not a hospital clinic, it was a privately owned clinic. But a couple of the doctors in there, they would have big arguments because they couldn't agree on the root causes or the pathway to health for some of their patients with similar issues. And some would say it was non-existent, and some would say it's absolutely there. And so you just got to do what feels right for you. Okay. But I love that so many cardiologists, neurologists, whatnot, are starting to agree with it. In fact, I've had people with like ankylosing spondylitis, and she said her ankylosing spondylitis seems to be in remission. I have people who had kidney disease who've reversed their stage 3 kidney disease. I've had people who, like, if you're like me and you're missing a gallbladder, that's going to be tough. Okay. But I'm there with you. So I'll share with you what I learn and what I know and what I experience. So hopefully you can be better too. But insulin resistance is at the root cause. The system that I talk about just addresses that root cause and does it in a way that your body can recognize and deal with and stay healthy, instead of trying to address some numbers while causing other problems. One of the stories I like to tell the most is when I worked in medical clinics. I saw so many patients, gave so many injections, did so much like lab work, so much whatever. But I had this lady come in and she was in like she just looked shell shocked. And I took her in and I roomed her and I was doing all the pre-consultation or the pre-visit questions. And we get to the, what medications are you on, verifying what medications. And she literally broke out in tears, opened up this big bag she had and pulled out two paper bags full of medications and said, I don't even know anymore. Here they are. You take them. I couldn't. So, and it took me over a half an hour. I dedicated over a half an hour of my time in the clinic to try and get all of her medications in the EMR that's already like preloaded. So all I got to do is type it in and it comes up with the options and I select it and move on. It took a half an hour and I never got all of her medications in. As I did it, what I recognized is she had one chief complaint. She went to a doctor for that. He put her on a medication. That medication caused other side effects. They put her on a medication for those. That caused other side effects. They put her on a medication for that. And it was just like this whole like array of medication after medication after medication. All, if you peeled back the layers, started with this one medication to deal with one problem. That's part of the reason I am not a big advocate of them now. Antibiotics and a few other things that we need and that are very life-saving, I am agreeing to those. But on a normal basis, when it's something as simple as our lifestyle, why are we taking medications to fix it when they don't fix it? And the people who are on GLP-1s, yeah, they lose the weight, but science has shown that about 40% of the weight lost is actual muscle loss. It's not clearing out your arteries. It's not helping your endothelium be healthier. It's not doing any of those things. And it's causing other problems in the body. Why would you do that to yourself? So I chose a more natural route, and that's why I do the protocol that I do. Again, you find it in my profile link right under my picture. There's red light symbols. We're going to show that in a second again. But any questions today? So I know that was kind of like really quick. Normally I get into the issue much quicker. I do this, you guys. I want you to understand if you're suffering and if you're going to the doctor and you don't have explanations. I remember I'm such a stubborn ass. I would write down, I'm like, I can never remember. I also have PTSD. So I get like, I get faced with somebody who's like yelling at me or questioning me and I shut down. So I started writing down all of the things. I'm like, I don't know. Back then I didn't know as much as I know now, obviously. And so I'm writing down this symptom, this symptom, this symptom, this symptom. And I took this list of symptoms into the doctor and he's just looking at me like I'm a hypochondriac and there's really nothing wrong with me. And yeah, there was. It was called insulin resistance, but nobody caught it. No physician caught it. I started this protocol, it worked, and then I started figuring out why. So now that whole story is because if that's you, if you're going in and you feel like you have this list of complaints that nobody can figure out, nobody's curing, nobody's fixing, and you just want a way out of this mess, you might want to think about getting your insulin resistance under control and see what can happen. I mean, the worst that's going to happen is you're going to get some of your health back, and that's never a bad thing. I see my name in here a couple of times, but I don't know if there was a question behind there. So you guys, it's that time of morning. I'm just about done, ready to wrap up. Yesterday, I want to stop and apologize. I wasn't here yesterday. I shipped my son overseas yesterday to protect our country, and this time just felt different for me. I've been saying it for a while, and like I have every faith that he's coming home, but if you're not in a military family, you might not understand, but this one was hard on me. And I ended up leaving my phone cord at their house and woke up to a dead phone and couldn't go live because I had no phone. So I took it as a cue that I needed a mental health day, and I took that day. Otherwise, I'm here Monday through Friday at about 8:30 a.m. and we're going to talk about different health issues. There's a number of things that people love to talk about or love to have me explain, and I'm more than happy to just pick one tomorrow. I don't know where my notes went from last week. Is there anything on the list up there that you guys want me to cover tomorrow or want me to talk about or bring you some more information on how insulin resistance is linked and what's going on? I'm not going to get into the deep dive of all the really crazy names and stuff, but I'll do an overview of what's happening so you can understand that insulin resistance really is the root cause of most of our disease disorders today. And if we address that simply by doing what happened to cause it in the first place, we're just plugging the gaps in our nutritional system so our bodies can do the work that they're meant to do. And that's the goal of the system. But it actually has scientific studies that it works. So the protocol IRA. So I keep saying I'm going to show that. Let's do that. So if you tap on my picture up here in TikTok, I'm going to put the link real quick for everyone in Facebook, YouTube. If you click that link, we're going to get there in a second, guys, over here. Or just tap on my picture up above on TikTok. It's going to bring up a white box on the bottom. Tap on that. I had to think about what I'm saying for a second. Tap on the white box on the bottom. It'll get you to my profile page, which should look something like this. So now you're here. Now there's my picture at the top. Okay. See the red light symbols right here? There's a link right there underneath of those. You click on that, and that's going to get you to the ordering page. Now, if you get to my profile link and you're like, I don't remember, look I've made a video right here for you guys to know how to order the system. This video right here. Okay. So either way, you're going to click on that link up above. It's going to take you to this page, which is my landing page. The order for the system is right here. There's a number of other things, all my other social media, my website, all of that, including what I do for a living. And if you want to talk to me about it, I would love to talk to you about that. But all of this information is here. Click on this top one. What I want you to notice is when you click on that to order, it's taking you right to the company's website. It will have my name at the top, and when you see my name at the top, that means you're going to get text from me. You're going to get. I don't do emails any longer because the company does the same emails I used to send. So you're going to get text from me. You're going to get a video from me how to use it. You're going to get a talk to me anytime you need. If you do need suggestions on what to eat, I'm there for that. But I don't do the meal plans because you guys, this simple system makes it easy for you to eat like you like to eat and still get your health back with those parameters. Fiber first, prioritize protein, fill up with fats. I do want to leave you with that. Stop fearing fats, but stop. One thing that happened yesterday in one of my conversations, and this is not the only time it's happened, but this is the most recent time. She was saying how she was having some extreme gut discomfort and gas, bloating, diarrhea. So as you start the system, you may notice some of those things because remember, some of the other medications and some of the actions of insulin resistance make your guts freeze up. And so they're working less hard. So if I were like, I haven't done squats in a while, to be honest, and I hate that I haven't, but if I were to go out and do squats now, even without any real weight, just the bar, I would have sore legs in 2 days because my muscles haven't been worked like that. Same thing is happening inside your gut. When your gut hasn't been contracting and working and it starts actually having to work, it can get a little sore. It can get a little tender. You can maybe have some gas and bloating at first. That usually lasts for a couple of weeks for most people. Now, if you've been on the system for a while and you're like, Nisha, every once in a while I go out to eat and it's just like so urgent after I eat that I have to be near a bathroom. Well, yeah. So here's what's happening. Pay attention to where you're eating and what you're eating because most often those symptoms are a side effect of bad seed oils or way too much sugar in your food. And when you can start to recognize what's causing those reactions in your body, you can start to recognize the foods for you that you shouldn't be eating. Okay. You guys can tell I woke up this morning and I'm like, man, I look tired. I just look tired. Mentally, yeah, I know he's coming home, but it's been a hard few weeks. Plus, I just gave him a lot of time over the last few weeks because I wanted him to know and feel loved and how much he's appreciated while he's over there in service for our country. So, wood alcohol. So, all right, guys, I'm going to hop off. Got some other things I'm going to go do. So, Tammy, turns out you're going to have a hip replacement. Ooh, that's a whole other topic, but I do want to dive into that really quick because every time somebody brings up something that I've done, I'm like, okay, is the black tea lemon also? Okay, let's take a look at that really quick. Um, I do want to talk about uh, the joint replacements. So what she's asking is there's a black on the list of teas. Okay, so if you come down here, there's black. The black actually looks, feels, and tastes more like coffee. It does not have a lemony taste. We've added a little black tea extract, a little coffee extract to make it look, feel, and taste more like coffee, but it does not have a lemony taste to it. Okay, so that's the black. I hope that explains that one. You guys, oh, so I wanted to go over this right at the very top, and I almost forgot. So we're transitioning into an all-natural balance, which means no artificial sweeteners of any kind, just stevia. So as we transition into that, eventually everyone will be getting the stevia only, but you may be getting one or the other as we transition out of our old stock of balance. Now, what I do want to say too is that our we're finally here. So the apple crush should be coming out within the next week or so for the tea, the apple crush, the apple spice for the tea should be coming out within the next week or two, and I will announce it here as soon as I know. And also my current customers, I'll be sending this out in text to you today about the natural lemon unimate. So we're in production of making the unimate with lemon, um, with stevia as a sweetener. So we're transitioning out of the old ones, but you can, if you want to order and you want to get the natural ones, just use my phone number that's been scrolling across the bottom. I'll put it in over here, or it's on WhatsApp. You can contact me on WhatsApp and we'll work together to get you into that. We actually have live now the natural lemon tea and the natural balance, meaning all stevia and no other artificial sweeteners in there. So if you want to get those right off the bat, let me know. And we'll work on how to get that to you because it's not available on my link yet. So Melba says she's doing intermittent fasting. You can't get her diet correct enough to lose like you want, getting too much something. And thank you for the appreciation for my son. So yeah, and that's why I don't do meal plans. Melba, I would be willing to bet a couple of things though. That's pretty common for most people, that you're not getting in enough protein and enough fats. Fats don't make you fat if they're eating the right kind of fats. Focus on the fruit fats of coconut, olive, and avocado. Focus on those fats. I don't have any other fats in my house. But I know that not everything that I ingest is made by my hand or has my watchful eye on the oils. And so I know when I go out to eat, I am at risk of getting some of those things in. Move your body more. And so protein, water, move your body. And if you are older, Melba, and you want to kind of jumpstart this. Remember, I'm doing that 36 and 12 fast. We can go over that tomorrow, why I'm doing that at my age, because it's helping regenerate my body. Okay, guys, I'm going to hop off. Any other? Oh, joints. Shoot, I forgot to go about that. So I've had 2 hips and 1 knee replaced, Tammy. Um, the hip replacements weren't so bad. I did die on the operating table on my first hip replacement. That was pretty horrific. The knee replacement, I don't ever want to go through again. I didn't know at the time that the arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, and osteoarthritis can both be linked to insulin resistance. But in every instance, I'm so stubborn and I went through so much. I was like, the doctor said with my hips that if I waited any longer, the labrum was going to crack and I was going to lose my entire leg. With my left knee, it was so bone on bone and it was grinding. There was no meniscus left. There was no synovial fluid left. The ligaments were all at risk. And so I had to have that knee replacement. The right knee was supposed to be replaced in 2022 because it was very similar. There was still some meniscal space in there. But I started the system, and within a year, my knee was the last x-ray they did on the knee, instead of the knee being like at an angle because there's no meniscus space on this side, but there's meniscus space on this side. Now that knee is leveled out, good meniscal space across the board. How did that happen? How did it go from degradation to rebuilding? Because I got the insulin under control in my body, that inflammation, the insulin resistance out of my body, and my knee was able to regenerate. Now that knee doesn't have to be replaced. So here's the other thing. So many things, so many things. Um, if you're looking at having surgery, please understand this is not like a medication that you have to stop to have your surgery. This is food. So yes, if you're supposed to be fasting, you shouldn't have this one. You can have this one, but you shouldn't have this one at all. Now, for me, when I had emergency gallbladder surgery, I knew when I went to the hospital that I was probably going to end up there. I didn't know it was my gallbladder. So I just grabbed a couple days worth of product and threw it in my purse. So inside my purse, I usually always grab extra Unimate. So in my purse was probably like this, because I was going to be there for a couple of days. As soon as I came out of surgery and they cleared me to eat, I was like, I need my bag and I'm drinking this. And they asked me what it was. And because it's in the PDR, they were able to go look it up. And in the hospital, I still had my system regularly. So there's nothing in this that's known to interact with any other medications or therapies. So I was able to take this, do it throughout my hospital stay, and come home and still stay healthy. And you can't say that with a lot of the other things that they're giving you. You might have to go off of them for a while. Can you take this even if you're not a diabetic? Yes, because most of us, 93% of us, have a metabolic disorder in the US, and that means an insulin resistance problem or an hyperinsulinemia problem for most of us. So if we're talking about getting the insulin down, you may have missed the part of the talk where, and I'll try to do it really briefly, it goes too much blood sugar to too much insulin to insulin resistance. Now, insulin resistance can hang out there for a while and be building up all this disarray, disease, disorder in your body. And then all of a sudden, one day, it gets to a point where the body can't take anymore, and those blood sugars are spilling back out because you filled up your fat cells into your bloodstream. And now you're pre-diabetic, your A1C is going up, your morning glucose is going up, and then it just keeps getting bad, 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 bad. So yeah, there's so many people who are not pre-diabetic or diabetic who are doing the system just for all the other health benefits, and understanding that our medical system is not geared to look for insulin resistance currently. They're working on it. They're changing that. But currently, they were like worried about pre-diabetes. They were missing the whole insulin resistant part when they could have been helping people all along. They didn't, and they're running around looking at all these other tests to try and figure out what's wrong with you when it's just insulin resistance. So if you're suffering with any of the things that were on that list, understand that, I don't know, for me, I was just in such a bad spot that I'm like, I'm going to try this and see what happens. And it changed everything for me. So you don't have to be diabetic to do this. PCOS, erectile dysfunction, sleep apnea, hypertension, migraine headaches, brain fog, all of those things, Alzheimer's, even Parkinson's, autism, ADHD have all been linked to insulin dysfunction. So am I going to say that reducing your insulin is going to cure some of those things? No. Am I going to say it's going to make the side effects and symptoms of those things better? Yes, it can. So, yeah, and with that, I'm so happy to say I've said for a long time, two of my daughter-in-law and my daughter both do the system. I have two of my older grandchildren who do the system. My granddaughter was pre-diabetic and is no longer pre-diabetic, lost weight, doing better in school. My ADHD grandson does better as long as he's doing the system. But now my little one that I'm here for, who has a liposomal disorder, it took me all this time to convince his family because his disorder is life threatening and they were terrified of doing anything outside that would affect him. But he's finally doing the balance because the balance is helping with the digestion of fats. So the in extreme gastrointestinal issues that he has, I'm hoping that they start to get better and that hopefully it lengthens his life when there's not such a load on his little liver. And so I'm happy to say that he's now doing the balance as well. And he's 7. So the system I speak of looks like this. It actually helps with insulin resistance and the disorders and stuff that can come along with insulin resistance start to get better, of course, when we address insulin resistance. So it's a tea I drink in the morning. I actually have a hot one here that I'm finishing up and a cold one because it's my drink of choice. The tea helps me burn fat for fuel in a fasted state. It's helping my ketones go up. It's helping me with mental clarity and energy. It has antioxidant, anti-cancer activity in it. It's just a really great tea. Plus, it's giving me some satiety, so I'm not hungry. Then, before I eat, I add in this little packet. So these are both tear open the top, pour it in some water, shake it up, and there you go. So it's extremely portable and easy to use. This helps me feel full before I eat, helps me feel full longer after I eat. It helps reduce a blood glucose spike up to 20% when taken before a meal. And when the blood glucose doesn't spike as high, the insulin doesn't spike as high. Now we're getting things under control. So even if you have spaghetti or lasagna or something with a lot of pasta in it, my daughter loves gnocchi, my daughter-in-law, we just have this ahead of time and it's going to help that blood glucose spike. So now you can have a normal life. Of course, you want to eat better when you can. I'm not advocating for do this and go eat cake and ice cream for every meal. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying you can have a real life because this is just putting back what's been stripped out of our food in the first place so our bodies can deal with our food more naturally and start to reverse some of the disease and disorder. With that, when I say 93% of us are metabolically unfit, if we had kids in a school and 93% of them were failing, would you go to the kid and say, it's your problem? You've got to work harder. Or would you maybe want to start to look and see what's going on at that school, why 93% are failing? That's us. So is it really to point the finger back at all of us and say, it's your problem, you're just a horrible person and you need to do better? No, that's not the way to look at it. Do we have some culpability in it? Yeah, we do, because we're in control of what we put in our face. We're in control of how much we get up and move. We're in control of a lot in our lives. But what we're not in control of is that we don't understand that our food's been so changed that even when we do what we think is the right thing, we're not getting the nutrition in that we need, and now we're getting sick. The system just gives me that control back by putting in what's been stripped out so metabolically my body can start functioning like it's supposed to. And that's the goal of it. Okay, you guys, link up above. I put the link in over on Facebook, YouTube. I will be back tomorrow morning. We'll talk about, if you guys don't, I'll just pick. I'll pick out of the hat what seems to be the most popular thing because there's so much, the gallbladder, the kidneys, the liver, the gout, erectile dysfunction, PCOS, migraine headaches, Alzheimer's, all of the stuff. I'll find something to talk about tomorrow. And then in the meantime, you guys decide what you would like to hear about, and I will put together something to talk to you about it. All right, I'm going to head out. I'm talking to myself now. I'm recycling my words. That means I'm still tired and I need to unplug from this whole thing. Um, preach. Melba says, preach. Um, yeah, it's you know what? Here's the thing with my son. It's crazy because it feels different and I worry. Of course I worry. There's a war going on this time that's not very pretty. But you know, and we're so shielded from it here in the US. We just don't realize what's going on. But I know he's coming home safe. Um, but in the middle of that, Melba, we're also now I moved out to Maryland and I am not complaining because I love my family and I love travel and I'm numerology, a life path 5, which means I'm going to move and stuff anyway, which has been my whole life. But now he got his job with the company he works for. It's a pretty high level job. And so we're going to be moving. His job is going to be in Cincinnati. So as soon as he gets back from deployment, he's taking my grandson and my daughter back to see our family in Idaho. I'm going to watch his house and stuff. But in this interim, I'm going to be helping his wife get holes patched, the house painted, all of that stuff. So we have a lot of work ahead of us in the next 3 months. So he can come home, take a vacation, sell his house, and get moved into his new job. So as my life goes, it's never a dull moment. No, we're moving to Kentucky. His job is in Cincinnati, but we have chosen Kentucky as the state of choice for us to live in. Now it's just about finding a home in an area there in, as my grandson calls it, Tucky. Um, of course, I'll find my own home and the kids will find theirs. And I don't normally find my home until he's found his because I want to be within, I don't know, 10 minutes or so of my grandson. So when things happen, I can be there to help out. But yeah, so we're moving to Kentucky. So now I just unpacked. I'm going to be spending, I told my grandson every weekend he comes over, or his chore, because we were having him do chores now. One of his chores is he has to spend 15 minutes helping me pack and get ready to move to Tucky. Tucky. Okay. All right, you guys. Yes, I'll be moving to Kentucky this fall, this fall winter time. But I'm here in Maryland until then. Okay. You guys, bless you all for joining me, listening to my craziness, hearing me preach about the system. You guys, I get up and I preach about the system because it saved my life. And I've watched what it's done for so many other people. And how could I not? I worked in medical for years and watched prescription drugs being passed out that were damaging people. And now there's a system that's actually building health. And why would I not talk about it? Why would I not when I know that 93% of us need this for whatever those things are up there that you're suffering with? Why would I not preach about it and talk about it? How much of an, sorry, I'm going to swear, how much of an asshat would I be to not share something that really changed and saved my life so you could get better too? All right, Melba, love you too. Thanks, hon. And we'll see you guys in the morning. Have a good one.